Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today I have a brand new guest and a returning guest to first understand how today's format is going to be. First, let me introduce you to the new guest. His name is Dawood Wassl. He is a Hazara activist and Salam Shalom Hazara Working Group, a survivor of the 1998 Hazara massacre by Taliban in Mazar-e-Sharif, Afghanistan, and he was imprisoned until 9/11 by Taliban. Dawood, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Thank you so much, uh, Gurus, for inviting me here. I am so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, and pleasure is all ours. And you all know Utsav. Utsav is our second guest for today's show. And first, I'm going to go to you, Dawood, and let us just talk a little bit about what you had to, undergo being a Hazara. You have been a community which has been traditionally very tolerant. You were also taking care of the Bamiyan Buddhist statues. All those formations, rock carvings. Overall, you've had a very inclusive mindset in terms of dealing with minorities such as Buddhists and Hindus and so on. How does it feel when somebody like the Taliban comes in and essentially tries to, eliminate you?
Well, being Hazara in Afghanistan has a long, history, and it's really, really hard to actually explain. And it has a long history of persecution and facing genocide since late 18th centuries. So when you explain Hazara in Afghanistan, unfortunately, you explain it in a context of being persecuted or genocide through more than a century. As you mentioned, Hazara are being tolerant, inclusive throughout their history in Afghanistan. But since Afghanistan itself was found, uh, just after that, it started Hazara being like somehow uh, uh, a group or a nation that is from the other people, especially the Afghans, need to be somehow eliminated. So this started from late 18th centuries by Abdurrahman King, an Afghan king, who massacred like 62% of Hazaras
Oh my God.
by fatwa. You probably were aware of the fatwa or know how
Yes, yes.
fatwa
Yeah,
where it comes
yeah,
from.
yeah.
It comes from Muslim mullahs or extremist mullahs. So it started from there, and then the whole century, 20th century, 19th century, 20th century, it came along, and it really didn't end uh, this persecution and massacres after massacres. Even though many governments came in Afghanistan and went, but Hazara persecution stayed there for until the moment. So, like, if you want to explain how you explain being a Hazara in Afghanistan, that's unfortunately I could only say in that matter. But you also in on the other hand, you could say in this many years Hazara resilience and being resilient and survived and tried to be like uh, you know as the nation as they are now. So that's another side of it.
I can feel the pain in your voice, Dawood, and I would like you to just hang on for 1 second because I'd like to come back to you to hear your personal story in just one moment. Let me welcome Utsav. Utsav, you are not new to our channel, and you are going to be essentially speaking for the Hindus and Buddhists and Sikhs of Afghanistan. Um, the question that I have for you, Utsav, is the history of Hindus in Afghanistan goes back to 7th century or 7th millennium BCE, I should say, 7th millennium BCE, and is well recorded in Mahabharata. In fact, one name for this region is Ashwagana, which means those people who are trainers of horses. Ashwa is a horse, and that was what they were really famous for, that they could train horses so that they are ready to be, used in other things, such as, either to pull vehicles or fight in wars and so on and so forth. And so Hindus were the majority and the ruling dynasty in Afghanistan until Kabul fell to the Ghaznavids 1,000 years ago. Are most Afghans aware about their history? How have the Hindus and Sikhs been treated prior to the arrival of the first Taliban?
So I would, this would be a question where actually Dawood can also add a lot of information, because in the last 600, 700 years, people from the Hazara community have been coexisting and actually trying to preserve the Hindu heritage there too. But to go back prior to that, yes, the entire region, all the way up to the Silk Route to Central Asia, historically, for the longest period, had been Buddhist and Hindu territory. Primarily first Hindu and then Buddhist for a short period of time during Kanishka's time, and then back to the last Hindu dynasties, the Shahi dynasties, which were ruling Kabul until the 10th and 11th century. Thereafter, were overthrown by the first Islamist dynasties, which is the Ghaznavids, who came in, and then thereafter, where Afghanistan became part of the caliphates, so the Abbasid caliphates. So there is a long history, and I have to say that since the 10th and 11th century, the persecution of Hindus, obviously, when the caliphate moved in, the persecution started, and both the Hindus and the Buddhists were the primary victims of that persecution. And it was at a very long and a continuous scale, because of which, eventually much of their population was either pushed into what is Pakistan and Kashmir today, because those were still safe zones, and then thereafter pushed into central India, northern and central India, which as the invasion forces kept coming. But I have to say that since the 13th century onwards, there was a soft equilibrium that was reached, where the Hindus became a significantly relevant minority, and the Sikhs came much later, because Sikh and Hindu traditions kind of went in after the
Right.
17th century. But the Hazaras, especially since then onwards, because the Hazaras were also part of the ethnic community that were in Afghanistan, originally were mostly Buddhists, and then obviously were Muslims afterwards. So there was a congruence of theological and social interests from the 13th century onwards, and thereafter the Hazaras have been the primary protectors of the Hindu historical monuments, because Afghanistan had such a long Hindu and Buddhist history that you dig anywhere in Afghanistan, you will find something that goes back to the Hindu period and the Buddhist period. So it's 3,500 years of history like that. So essentially that was protected by the Hazaras. The Hindu community and the Hazara community lived side by side and thrived for short periods of time before they were continuously attacked and targeted. So that's how I would explain, and I know Dawood can talk more about the role of Hazaras in protecting the Hindu and the Buddhist heritage. So maybe Dawood can add.
Yeah, Dawood, if you could chime in before I ask you my next question.
All right. I am unfortunately is not a historian. I have a little information about the history, but as far as I have heard and I know that, as Wutsa said, that Hazara has been there for as long as you think, and their ancestors were Buddhist, and you can see a lot of or many traditions they have right now. It's like from those times. So I was just talking about the recent history of Hazara, how they their persecution really started, which is during Abdul Rahman Khan. But yes, Hazaras, they have been there for that long, and they preserved all those ancient places, Buddha statues, caves, and everything for so long. Even those painting, which um, it has been said that the first ink they made and painted on the Buddha statue caves around it. So that has been there for until the first time the Taliban came in Afghanistan, and they scratched everything, the painting first, and then they blew up the Buddhas, and then they destroyed that, at least the two biggest Buddha I think it's in the world, and there's three or more smaller that they were carved in the cliffs. So yes, Hazara have been preserving their heritage, which is our heritage. It's Hindus and Hazaras, Buddhists. So yeah, that can I add onto Woods's point.
Thank you so much. And Dawood, talk to us a little bit about your incarceration experience of having been in jail for 3 years. What happened? What led up to it? And how did you get freed?
Well, as you know, the Taliban captured Mazar-e Sharif in 1998. But when the Taliban came in Afghanistan, I think was somewhere around 1994 or 5. But when they captured Mazar-e Sharif, it was August 1998. It's a bit. I wanted to give a bit background what how it happened in Afghanistan, why the Taliban came. I think it was in 1996 that Osama bin Laden has issued a fatwa against Americans, and then they right after that they started one massacre in Mazar-e Sharif, which is a village, a Hazara village. They captured it, they killed, they in brutal ways the whole village of Hazaras. So then they defeated back from there. They came back in 1997. I mean, in 1998. So by the time they came there, they captured the city. They had the order from Mullah Omar to kill Hazaras, any Hazara male, for 3 days. And yeah, they did it for 3 days. The first day, they whoever Hazara they saw on the streets of Mazar-e Sharif, they killed them. The second and the third day, they started home searching. So whatever male, Hazara male, they from 12 beyond, they captured, they killed them on the spot. Although many Hazaras had been fled by the time to the mountains, but the ones who left, they tried to survive, find a way to survive. So some of the Hazaras, they tried to take refuge in other ethnicities' homes, like Tajiks, Uzbeks, and Pashtuns, which or Afghans that Taliban come from mostly. So my family, like most of like my mother, my sister, my nieces, we were a big family. We sent them one day ahead of the Mazar Sharif collapse, and my uncle, which was like around 65, and myself stayed home to take care of the house or guard them. And on the morning of August 9, 1998, as Taliban started home searching and killing, so we had to try to find a way, not to be killed. So we took a refuge to one of our Pashtun neighbors' house. So we went there, which already like 3 Hazara families were. But the Taliban announced on the radio that whoever, uh, you know, shelter Hazara, they will face the same situation that Hazara are facing now. So the owner of the house, or our host, he decided to contact the local Pashtun Talib commander to, ask them to like hold on us for some days until the situation gets settled. So that commander sent some Talib to take us, like 5 Hazara people, and they attempted to kill us, but they argued, because they were taking us from a Pashtun house, and then some of the other 3 Hazaras were with us. Family members were still in that Pashtun's house somehow, so they decided not to kill, but they put us in the uh, military compound of that Pashtun local commander, and we were tortured there for like uh, 5 or so days, and then from there they took us to the main prison of Mazar Sharif, which is a you know um, there they also put us in a separate smaller place than other people. So they were capturing every people who look like Hazaras. You know that Uzbeks and Turkmen, they look like us too, or we look like
Yes,
each other.
yes, yeah,
They
yeah.
took a lot of them also and put them in prison, and then they vetting them, asking questions like religious questions and things like that. They used local Pashtuns to vet Hazaras from you know segregate them, Hazaras from those people, and put in a different prison. Um, yeah. So after 5 days we were there, and I mean this story is long, and a lot of um, how do you say, experiences that I have experienced there, or we have experienced there, is really uh, how do I say, it's hard to tell.
I understand.
Um,
I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it will take a long time if I explain that to you what happened in the prison. Yeah, that's
So it's an indication of how they were trying to ethnically cleanse the Afghanistan land of all Hazaras. But tell me something, Dawood. You know, Afghanistan is not a single community, like you just said. There are Uzbeks, there are Tajiks, there are Pashtuns, and there are native Hazaras, and perhaps there were Sikhs and Hindus also at one point of time, some Buddhists too. What was the need for the Taliban to uh, target the Hazaras, in your opinion?
yeah. That questions is really hard to answer, and that question should be answered, I think, by the Taliban and by the ones who are supporting them. Why they kill Hazaras? Why they kill um Sikhs, Hindus? Why they kill Jews and Christians? And why they take their lands? And why they actually kill Hazaras, who are one sect of Islam. And this is something that is hard to answer. But there's one thing that I could think about is that Hazaras are not uh, you know are peaceful, and they are trying to go forward and not submit to the violation, and not submit to the agenda some of the people, especially Pashtun politicians, are trying to implement Afghanistan by supporting from outside, which is have always been the case.
Utsav, this memo has not been read by America. They don't seem to really acknowledge what the Taliban did to the Hazaras, and somehow in US has now gone and made peace with the Taliban, and they are essentially the rulers. It doesn't matter whether a country recognizes them or not, they are in power today. And yet, not one person has been either jailed or any kind of inquiry has been done. And this is thoughtless killing of poor people who are peace loving. Well, is there anything that we as Americans do for the community of Hazaras? I mean, is there anything that you have planned for what the minorities of Afghanistan have gone through?
Yes, very pertinent question, Sri. And what has happened is that there are so many competing geopolitical events happening around the world that the tragedy that has unfolded in Afghanistan over the last many decades, especially the way in which the Hindus, the Sikhs, and the Hazaras have been literally wiped out. Uh, and I have to say that, Dawood was very polite to mention Taliban only. I would say that when he was saying backers of Taliban, it points to one specific country in a very significant way in the region, which is Pakistan. And the role that Pakistan's state agencies, both its military and civilian leadership, has played in trying to keep Afghanistan always on the boil, causing so much suffering to its people, especially the Hazaras and the religious minorities. So coming back to your question, Sri, in terms of what we in America are planning, hoping to do so that the American leadership, the American public doesn't drop the ball and just moves on. So one of the things we are planning is this Sunday, actually, we have a major event, and Dawood and myself are working towards that event, is to actually have a partnership of friendship, formal friendship between the Hindu and the Hazara community. This is the first time this is happening. This is a historic event we are doing, because we both have undergone genocides. We both have the people who perpetrated those genocides and promoted those genocides are from the same source. Then they face, they promote the same religious extremism. And therefore, we will have people from the Bangladeshi religious minority community, from the Kashmiri Hindu community, from the Hazara community, as well as from other religious minority communities in the region who have faced genocides from the same source and from the same religious extremists, as Dawood called them, the mullah mindset. And we are going to establish a partnership so that in America, at least, we can be a voice of unity. And once we are able to do this, we may be able to push back. We have to remember that those who are in this level of extremism, whether they are from Pakistan or other radicalized Islamist areas, they wield significant power and have significant resources. So we have to come together to build up that power and resources. And this is the first step with the Hazara community and the Hindu community coming together. I think more and more communities will join us. The Jewish American community has faced, they have faced discrimination as well over the years. They have gone through a genocide, the Holocaust, that now everybody talks about. So we all will come together. And I know I need to point out that Dawood's organization is Salam Shalom, which is an indicator to the alliance we are building with the larger Jewish American community as well. So it's a first step, but we are going forward with it.
Dawood, when did you, living in Mazar-e-Sharif, realize that the Pakistanis were pretty much, embedded with the Taliban? They started, did you find them also in 1996 itself, or did they come later? Because, I'll tell you one anecdotal evidence. The Kunduz airlift was supposed to be a few Pakistani intelligence operatives living in Kunduz area. You know how many people flew out from there? 5,000. What were the Americans thinking? I'm really going to ask somebody, what the heck were the people on the ground thinking? These guys were practically the ones, they should have been in the same jail as all the other people who got jailed. But Dawood, please talk to us about a little bit about when you started seeing the Pakistani influence come into Afghanistan.
I'm sorry, I will answer your question, but I would like to, if you wouldn't mind, to put that Salam Shalom Hazara working group on that one, because under my name.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. To your question, I mean, there's no doubt. So, like personally, physically, I found it when I was in 𝙒𝙗𝙗𝙦𝙤𝙤, or 𝗤𝙧𝙤𝙤 prison. When Taliban moved us to 𝙒𝙗𝙗𝙤𝙤 province, and the person who was like a prison ward manager, or whatever you call it, he was a Pakistani, and he was not like, he didn't know any Farsi, and the way he was speaking was not a Pashto language that the Pashtuns are speaking in Afghanistan. That was obvious, but that was that's not even the case. That all these extremists are based, or were based at the time, and they were trained in Pakistan, and they came from there, and they were supported by Pakistan. You cannot, or no one can hide this. And this Deobandi kind of thing, or Salafi extremist of Islam, they are based in Pakistan. They have thousands of madrasas under the security of Pakistan government. So that's obvious. And during the I think the 2001, when coalition forces came in Afghanistan, and as you just mentioned, there were many Pakistanis lifted from Kunduz by air, and I think that was some kind of agreement between United States and Pakistan. Like they later, the coalition forces, or the American forces, captured at least like 400 Al-Qaeda member and Pakistanis that were Al-Qaeda members in Mazar-e-Sharif. You know the uprise of those Al-Qaeda members in Qalai Jangi. So yeah, there's no doubt about it.
So I have the event flyer up there, and would you like to talk to it a little bit, Dawood?
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, as Mr. Utsav mentioned, or explained about the event that we are going to have, which is as solidarity through shared history and value between Hindus and Hazaras, actually American and American Hindus and American Hazaras community for now in the United States. Yeah, we are going to have that event, to recognize our shared history, which we already a little bit talk about it, and also the values we have, the peace seeking values that we have together, and the pain and uh, uh, you know, the problem that we had already through the same source, or by the same source that we just mentioned. The situation in Bangladesh, in Hindu
Genocide, yeah.
yeah, genocide, or Bangladeshi Hindus that are facing massacres, genocides by the extremists, which they all come from the same place and the same idea. So these are all the things that we are recognizing, um, you know, through this event from each other. And we just refresh our past history, and we will try to move collectively and united for the better future.
Thank you so much, Dawood. Viewers, we're going to put the link in the description section of this video. But if you go back a few minutes, you will see the clear QR code. Now you can just go and focus and take a picture of that, and that will take you to the event details also. It's kind of a little bit easier way to get there. So either way, you can get the information to this event. And I urge each and every one of you who are in the area of Virginia, in that neighborhood, if you can make it there, it's a very important statement. We're all coming towards one entity that has meted out injustice wherever they went, and they need to be brought to book. That is the most important thing. And in order to try and hide themselves, they play victimhood, create fake narratives. Unfortunately, at this point of time, they are winning and we are not standing up. It is time we stood up, and that's what we are trying to do. Utsav, last question for you. How many Hindus and Sikhs are still left in Afghanistan today, according to you?
So I spoke to a Hindu representative of the Afghan community just yesterday, and as per him, there are only 30 families left, 30.
Oh my God.
And many of those families are actually taking care of the Asamai temple in Kabul, near Kabul, and some of them are local traders or businessmen, but that's about it. And just think about it. You go back to the Mahabharatas, you go back 7,000 years, and from that point to today, where there are only 30 families left, if that is not the death of a civilization, I don't know what is. And the same stories the Hazaras are facing, and if the challenges that they face today, if you project that line forward another few decades, they are not going to be in any better situation than where we are. And that is the reason why we are doing what we are doing together.
Thank you very much, Dawood. Thank you very much, Utsav. I hope the Taliban administration understands that they need to start doing some serious amends here. They need to welcome back I still remember like yesterday, Utsav, the 2 Guru Granth Sahibs that the priests brought with them. They're standing in front of I think the Kabul airport, if I'm not wrong. They were about to board the plane, and those people are now back in India also. So this is not a solution. This is not a solution. I don't agree with many of the things that are happening in Taliban, but first we have to create the awareness. Taliban itself is a creation of Pakistan. That's where the root of all the evil is. That needs to be addressed just as thoroughly as what the changes that Taliban needs to make. Thank you once again, both of you, for taking the time out. I wish you all the best for the event. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. I'd like, Dawood, for you to come back, and you too, Utsav, after the event finishes, so that we can kind of look at what are all the other things that are happening, how the event went, to just get to familiarize our viewers with what is happening. We are certainly not keeping quiet. We are making our voice heard. Thanks once again, gentlemen. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.